The night my husband announced my death, I was standing 20 feet away from him.
I watched through the rain, streaked window of the Hawthorne Hotel, as Daniel raised a glass to 200 guests and told them how bravely I had fought to survive the accident. There had been no accident, and I was not dead. My name is Claire Bennett. Until that night, I believed I had a good life in Columbus, Ohio. I was 40, 2 years old, married for 16 years, and part owner of Bennett Home Designs, the company Daniel and I had built together. At least, I thought we had built it together. Daniel stood beneath a crystal chandelier in a black suit. His hand rested on the waist of my younger sister, Vanessa. She wore my red evening gown. Claire was the heart of this company. Daniel told the room. Tonight, we honor her memory by continuing her dream. Vanessa lowered her eyes as if she were grieving. Then Daniel squeezed her hand. That small touch told me everything. 3 days earlier, Daniel had taken me to our cabin near Lake Erie. He said we needed a quiet weekend away. Our marriage had been strained, and I wanted to believe he was trying to save it. On the second night, he poured me wine. I remember the strange bitter taste. I remember the room tilting. I remember Daniel catching me before I hit the floor. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Those were the last words I heard before everything went black. I woke inside our SUV with my wrists tied. The vehicle was parked in an old boathouse at the edge of the lake. Gasoline soaked the seats. A metal can lay open beside me. Outside, Daniel and Vanessa were arguing. "You promised she wouldn't feel anything," Vanessa said. "Keep your voice down," Daniel answered. "When they find the vehicle, the fire will have destroyed enough evidence." I stopped breathing. My husband and my sister were planning to burn me alive. Daniel lit something and threw it through the open boathouse door. Flames raced across the wooden floor. Then they drove away in Vanessa's car. The fire reached the SUV as I pulled against the rope until skin tore from my wrists. I kicked the passenger window again and again. On the fourth kick, the glass cracked. On the sixth, it broke. I crawled out through the opening as the back seat caught fire. My coat burned along one sleeve. I rolled in the wet grass, then stumbled into the lake. Behind me, the boathouse collapsed. I should have gone to the police, but from the trees, I saw a county patrol vehicle arrive. Deputy Mark Ellis stepped out. Mark was Daniel's oldest friend. He looked at the burning wreck for less than a minute. Then he called Daniel. "It's done," he said. That was when I understood the danger was larger than my husband. I walked for almost 2 hours before an elderly woman named Ruth Alvarez found me beside the highway. Ruth was a retired emergency room nurse. She treated my burns, gave me dry clothes, and let me use her phone. I called only one person, Evelyn Price, the attorney who had handled my mother's estate. Evelyn listened without interrupting. "Do not contact anyone else," she said. "If Daniel believes you survived, he'll try again. Let the world think you're dead until we know who helped him." For the next 3 days, I stayed in Ruth's guest room while Evelyn investigated. She discovered that Daniel had reported me missing before the fire was found. Mark identified my melted wedding ring inside the vehicle. No human remains had been recovered, but Daniel claimed the lake had carried them away. Then Evelyn found the invitation to the memorial gala. It was not really a memorial. Daniel planned to announce a merger with Northline Development, sell my half of the company, and collect a $4 million life insurance policy. So I went to the hotel. I wore a dark wig and stood outside the ballroom while Daniel performed his grief. On stage, he unveiled a framed photograph of me. Beneath it sat one empty chair. "Claire should be sitting here tonight," he said. I almost walked into the room. I wanted to tear off the wig and watch his face collapse. But then a waiter handed Daniel a folder. He signed the final page and passed it to a man from Northline. Vanessa leaned close to him. "After midnight, everything is ours," she whispered. "Not theirs, I thought." "Not yet." As the guests applauded, I slipped into Daniel's private office behind the ballroom. His laptop was open, but it required a password. I checked the desk and found nothing. Then I saw my mother's silver locket beside his phone. Daniel had taken it from my body before leaving me to burn. My grief turned cold. I picked up the locket and noticed a tiny red light beneath the desk. A security camera pointed directly at me. The office door clicked shut. Someone was standing on the other side. Part 2. Th door. I froze with the locket in my hand. The door opened, and a man stepped inside. It was Marcus Reed, our company's chief financial officer. Marcus had worked beside me for 11 years. He was careful, quiet, and almost impossible to read. Daniel trusted him with every company account. Marcus stared at me. "Claire." I reached for the heavy lamp on the desk. He quickly locked the door behind him. "Daniel thinks you're dead," he said. He tried very hard to make it true. Marcus looked toward the camera. Then he pulled the cable from the wall. "That camera doesn't record," he said. "Daniel uses it to frighten employees." I did not lower the lamp. "Were you part of this?" "No." But I knew he was stealing. Marcus opened Daniel's laptop and typed a password. The screen unlocked. "The password is Vanessa's birthday," he said. "That should tell you where his loyalty has been." Inside the laptop were company accounts I had never seen. Daniel had transferred millions into shell businesses. Some payments went to Deputy Mark Ellis. Others went to a city inspector and a private doctor named Howard Crane. Docker. Crane had signed a document declaring me mentally unstable 2 months before the fire. I had never met him. "Why would Daniel need this?" I asked. Marcus showed me another file. It was a petition prepared for court. If I had survived but accused Daniel, he planned to claim I suffered from delusions. The forged medical report would let him take control of my shares and place me in a psychiatric facility. He had prepared 2 endings for me: death if the fire worked, disgrace if it did not. Music thundered through the ballroom wall as Daniel celebrated. Marcus copied the files onto a small drive and handed it to me. "This proves fraud," he said. "It does not prove attempted murder." "Then I'll find proof." "Claire, you need to understand something. Northline isn't buying the company because it is valuable. Daniel has promised them the riverfront neighborhood. 3 years earlier, Bennett Home Designs had purchased several abandoned buildings along the Scioto River. I wanted to renovate them into affordable apartments and small businesses. Daniel hated the project because it produced little profit. Marcus explained that Northline intended to demolish the neighborhood and build luxury towers. Families would be forced out. Daniel would receive $12 million after the sale. My death was not only about insurance. I was the one person who could stop the land transfer. Footsteps approached the office. Marcus hid me in a storage closet just before Daniel entered. Through the narrow gap, I saw my husband pour 2 drinks. Vanessa followed him inside. "You touched her locket again," she said. Daniel looked at it on the desk. It moved. "You're imagining things. I left it beside the keyboard." Vanessa laughed softly. "Maybe Claire came back for it." Daniel did not laugh. He crossed the room and opened the closet door. I pressed myself behind a row of winter coats. His hand reached between them, close enough that I could see the gold hairs on his wrist. Then Marcus dropped a glass. Daniel turned. "Sorry," Marcus said. "I thought you wanted the Northline numbers." Daniel shut the closet. After he and Vanessa left, I could barely stand. Marcus wanted to take me to Evelyn immediately. But I needed one more thing. I asked him to recover the deleted location history from Daniel's phone account. By morning, Marcus had found visits to a storage facility outside the city. Unit 317 had been rented under Mark's name. Evelyn, Ruth, Marcus, and I met in Ruth's kitchen. They were the only people who knew I was alive. Evelyn studied the financial records. "We can stop the merger temporarily," she said. "But if we reveal you now, Daniel will destroy anything that connects him to the fire." Ruth placed fresh bandages around my wrists. "Then make him believe he won," she said. That became our plan. Evelyn filed a confidential request, delaying the transfer of my shares. Marcus stayed close to Daniel and pretended the paperwork was progressing. I remained hidden. At night, I listened to old voicemails from Vanessa. She had been my closest friend when we were children. After our father left, I protected her from everything. I paid her college tuition. I gave her a job. I let her stay in our home after her divorce. And she had helped my husband tie me inside a burning vehicle. 2 days later, Marcus called with new information. Unit 317 was scheduled to be emptied the following morning. If the proof was inside, we had only one night to find it. Evelyn warned me that entering the unit could ruin the case. But waiting could destroy it. At midnight, Marcus and I drove to the storage facility. He used a service code from a company invoice to open the gate. The lock on Unit 317 had already been cut. The door was raised 3 inches. Light moved beneath it. Someone was inside. Part 3. Ta'emwas sesestar, lefty darkai Marcus, and I hid behind a delivery truck. Deputy Mark Ellis stepped out of Unit 317 carrying a cardboard box. He loaded it into his patrol vehicle, went back inside, and returned with a gasoline can. He intended to burn the evidence. Marcus called the fire department anonymously, while I moved along the shadows toward the unit. Mark poured gasoline across the floor, then paused when his radio crackled. I kicked a loose bottle across the pavement. The sound drew him away from the door. I slipped inside. The unit contained items taken from our cabin, the wine bottle Daniel had drugged, the rope from my wrists, my ruined purse, and the clothes Vanessa had worn that night. On a shelf sat a small black recorder. I grabbed it and crawled behind stacked furniture as Mark returned. He lit a match. Sirens sounded in the distance. Mark cursed, dropped the match into a metal bucket, and ran. The flame failed to spread before firefighters arrived. Marcus and I escaped through a damaged panel at the back of the unit. At Ruth's house, we played the recorder. Daniel's voice filled the kitchen. "The dose will keep her unconscious for 6 hours. If then," Dr. Crane said, "if anyone tests the bottle, they'll trace the prescription to me." Mark answered, "There won't be a bottle." It was the proof we needed. But the recording continued. Vanessa entered the room. She sounded frightened. "Daniel." "I changed my mind." He told her it was too late. "No," she said. "We can take the company without killing her." Daniel's voice became quiet. "You already helped me move the money. You signed the insurance form. If I go down, you go down." Then came a sharp sound, followed by Vanessa crying. "Do what I told you," Daniel said, "or I'll put you in the car beside her." I listened twice. Vanessa had betrayed me, but Daniel had also threatened her. For one dangerous moment, pity weakened me. Then I remembered her standing beside the boathouse while I lay tied inside the SUV. She had left with him. She had worn my dress. She had accepted my life as payment for her comfort. Fear could explain her choice. It could not erase it. Evelyn took the recorder to a trusted state investigator, Special Agent Lena Brooks. Lena verified my identity and arranged protection, but she wanted more evidence before making arrests. "Mark is a deputy," she said. "Crane is respected. Daniel has money and political connections. If we move too early, they'll call this a family dispute and bury it. Lena asked me to wear a recording device and confront Vanessa privately. The thought made my stomach turn. We chose my mother's old house, which had been empty since her death. Vanessa still had a key. Marcus sent her a message from an unknown number. IKNT pinep e day thlaki, come along. She arrived just after sunset. I waited in the dark living room beside my mother's piano. Vanessa entered and called out, "Who are you?" I switched on the lamp. She screamed. For several seconds, she could not move. "You're dead," she whispered. You watched Daniel make sure of it. She fell to her knees and began to cry. She told me the affair had started 1 year earlier. Daniel promised her money and a new life. When I refused to sell the riverfront property, he said he only wanted to frighten me into signing. Vanessa claimed she did not know about the murder until we reached the cabin. "I begged him to stop," she said, "but you got into his car. He threatened me. And 3 days later, you wore my dress." Her crying stopped. The face she lifted toward me was no longer helpless. "Do you know what it was like being your little sister?" she asked. "Claire paid for this. Claire fixed that. Everyone thought you were perfect." There it was. Not fear, resentment. Vanessa stood and wiped her face. "Daniel said the fire would be fast." She continued. "He said, you would never wake up." That confession was enough. Then Vanessa looked directly at the brooch, hiding my microphone. Was that recording me? She lunged. We struggled beside the piano. The microphone tore from my dress and slid across the floor. Vanessa grabbed a brass candle holder. Before she could swing it, Agent Brooks stepped from the hallway with 2 officers. Vanessa dropped the weapon. Lena did not arrest her. Instead, she offered a choice: cooperate and face a reduced charge, or be charged with attempted murder. Vanessa agreed to help. She would tell Daniel she had received anonymous threats. Then she would convince him to gather everyone involved at the Hawthorne Hotel, where Northline planned to finalize the sale. Daniel believed he was preparing to destroy the final evidence. In truth, he was bringing every conspirator into one room. The night before the meeting, Marcus called me. His voice shook. "Daniel knows someone accessed the storage unit," he said. "He checked the gate records. Does he know it was you?" Marcus did not answer. Then I heard Daniel's voice behind him. "Put Claire on the phone." PRT4. THTRP Benerct Hotel. My blood went cold. Daniel knew I was alive. "Claire," he said through Marcus's phone, "you have caused enough trouble." I forced myself to stay calm. "Where is Marcus?" "Safe. For now. Bring the recorder to the Hawthorne tomorrow at 8. Come alone, or Marcus will have an accident." The call ended. Agent Brooks traced it to an abandoned factory. But Daniel was gone before police arrived. Marcus's car remained outside with blood on the driver's seat. I blamed myself. Marcus had risked everything, because years earlier I had given him a second chance after he made an accounting mistake. He said, I had saved his career. Now Daniel might kill him for helping me. Lena wanted to cancel the hotel operation. I refused. Daniel had changed the plan, but his weakness remained the same. He believed money made him smarter than everyone else. He believed love, fear, and loyalty were things he could purchase. So, I let him believe I was coming alone. At 8 the next evening, the Hawthorne ballroom was prepared for the Northline signing. Daniel had told the buyers the earlier delay was resolved. I entered through the front doors wearing the same red gown Vanessa had worn at my memorial. Every conversation stopped. Daniel stood at the far end of the room. For the first time since I had known him, he looked truly afraid. Then he smiled. My wife, he announced. Alive, but deeply unwell. Crane stepped forward with 2 private security guards. He held the forged medical order. Daniel had expected me. He told the guests that grief and exhaustion had caused me to disappear. He claimed I had set fire to the boathouse during a breakdown and imagined a conspiracy against him. Some people believed him. That was the cruelest part. A confident lie often sounds cleaner than a painful truth. Dr. Crane approached me. "Claire, we're going to take you somewhere safe." "Before you do?" I said. "May I say goodbye to my company?" Daniel glanced toward the Northline executives. He wanted to look reasonable. 2 minutes, he said. I walked onto the stage. Behind me was the framed photograph from my memorial. The empty chair still sat beneath it. I faced the room. 3 nights ago, Daniel stood here and told you I was dead. Tonight, he says I am insane. Tomorrow, if it benefits him, he will tell you I never existed. Daniel signaled the guards. The ballroom lights went out. The large screen behind me turned on. Marcus appeared in a live video. He was bruised but alive, sitting beside Agent Brooks at police headquarters. Relief almost made my knees fail. Marcus had cut his own hand and left blood in the car after escaping Daniel's men through the factory basement. He had gone directly to Lena. On the screen, company records appeared one after another: stolen money, bribes, the forged medical report, and the illegal Northline agreement. Then the recording from Unit 317 played through the speakers. Daniel shouted for security to stop it. The guards did not move. They were undercover state officers. Deputy Mark Ellis ran toward a side exit. 2 agents arrested him at the door. Dr. Crane tried to tear up the medical order, but Evelyn was already holding a certified copy. Daniel turned to Vanessa. "Tell them Claire planned this," he demanded. Vanessa stood beside the Northline table, pale and trembling. For once, the choice belonged to her. She removed a hidden microphone from her necklace. "Daniel made me help him," she said. "But I still helped. I'm done lying." Daniel slapped her. The room erupted. He grabbed Vanessa and pressed a broken glass against her throat. Then he demanded the recorder and a clear path to the garage. Lena told everyone to stay still. Daniel dragged Vanessa toward me. "Give it to me." I held up the small black recorder. "This is what you killed me for." His eyes followed it. I threw it across the stage. Daniel released Vanessa and dove after it. The recorder struck the floor and broke apart. It was an empty copy. Agents tackled Daniel before he could stand. As they pulled his hands behind his back, he looked up at me. "You'll lose everything too," he said. "The company, the house, all of it." I stepped down from the stage. "You still don't understand," I told him. "I already lost everything the night I learned who you were." The ballroom filled with camera flashes as police led Daniel, Mark, and Dr. Crane away. But my revenge was not finished. Daniel thought prison was the worst thing I had planned for him. He was wrong. Part 5. THEEMPTHAIR. The arrests made national news. Daniel was charged with attempted murder, conspiracy, kidnapping, fraud, bribery, and insurance fraud. Mark faced additional charges for destroying evidence and abusing his position. Dr. Crane lost his medical license before the criminal trial even began. Vanessa pleaded guilty to conspiracy and received a reduced sentence because she cooperated. She would spend 4 years in prison. People asked if I forgave her. I did not. Forgiveness is personal. Justice is public. I could accept that she finally told the truth without pretending her betrayal no longer hurt. Northline immediately canceled the merger and claimed its executives knew nothing about Daniel's crimes. That was another lie. Marcus and I discovered emails showing they knew Daniel did not legally control my shares. They had also paid consultants to pressure residents out of the riverfront neighborhood. I could have sued for money. Instead, Evelyn helped me make a different offer. If Northline transferred the neighboring land to a community trust, I would release certain civil claims. If they refused, every internal email would become public during a long and humiliating trial. They accepted within 48 hours. That was the revenge Daniel never expected. Every dollar he had stolen was recovered through the sale of his properties. His luxury car paid for legal support for the riverfront residents. His private investment account funded the first renovated apartment building. The cabin near the lake was demolished. On the land, I built a small emergency shelter for women escaping domestic violence. We named it Ruth House, after the woman who found me beside the highway and chose to stop. Ruth cried when I showed her the sign. "I only did what anyone should have done," she said. "No," I told her. "You did what everyone hopes someone will do." 6 months later, Daniel's trial began. He wore a plain gray suit and avoided looking at me. His attorneys claimed he had been manipulated by Vanessa and pressured by financial problems. Then I took the witness stand. I described the bitter wine, the rope around my wrists, the gasoline, and the sound of Daniel saying he was sorry. The prosecutor asked what I remembered most clearly. "The empty chair," I said. The jury looked confused, so I explained. At my memorial, my husband placed an empty chair beneath my photograph. He wanted everyone to see the space I had left behind. But that chair was never proof that I was gone. It was proof that he had tried to erase me. Daniel finally looked at me. I held his gaze. The jury found him guilty on every major charge. He was sentenced to 42 years in prison. As officers led him away, he called my name. I did not turn around. For 16 years, I had turned whenever Daniel wanted something. I had fixed his mistakes, defended his decisions, and made myself smaller so he could feel powerful. That woman had died in the boathouse. I walked out of the courthouse into bright winter sunlight. Marcus was waiting on the steps. He had become president of Bennett Home Designs, while I moved into a new role leading the riverfront project. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now we build what they tried to destroy." The following spring, we opened the first completed riverfront building. The ground floor held a grocery store, a childcare center, and a workshop for local artists. Above them were 60 affordable apartments. Every family who had been threatened with removal was offered a home. At the opening ceremony, I stood before the neighborhood with no prepared speech. I told them the truth. I told them that revenge had once meant watching Daniel suffer. During the nights after the fire, I imagined visiting him in prison and describing everything he had lost. But revenge changed as I healed. It became larger than pain. Daniel had wanted my death to purchase his future. Instead, his crimes paid for the future of people he had planned to remove. He wanted my company to become a monument to his wealth. Instead, it became protection for families who had almost lost their homes. He wanted an empty chair. I filled an entire neighborhood. After the ceremony, I returned alone to the Hawthorne Hotel. The ballroom was empty, and workers were preparing for another event. The manager had saved the chair from my memorial at Evelyn's request. I sat in it for the first time. For a while, I thought about everything I had lost: my marriage, my sister, the life I had believed was real. Then I thought about what remained: Ruth's kindness, Marcus's courage, Evelyn's patience, my own voice. Survival did not return me to the person I had been. It introduced me to the person I had always been capable of becoming. I removed my mother's silver locket and opened it. Inside was a photograph of Vanessa and me as children. We were standing beside a lake, holding hands. I did not throw it away. Some memories deserve to be kept, not because they excuse the ending, but because they prove the beginning was once real. I closed the locket and stood. Before leaving, I placed a small card on the chair. It contained one sentence. The hotel manager later told me Daniel's attorney came looking for the chair, hoping to use it in an appeal. Instead, he found my message. It said, "You left my chair empty, Daniel. But I came back and took the whole room." 1 year after the trial, I received a letter from Daniel. The envelope came from the state prison. I recognized his handwriting before I saw his name. For 2 days, I left it unopened on my kitchen table. Part of me wanted to burn it. Another part wanted to know whether he had finally found the courage to admit what he had done. On the 3rd morning, I opened it. Daniel did not apologize. He wrote that I had embarrassed him. He accused Marcus of turning me against him. He said Vanessa had destroyed our family by speaking to the police. Then he claimed that everything he had done was meant to protect the company from my weak decisions. At the end, he asked me to send money to his prison account. I laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the sound of the last locked door inside me finally opening. For months, I had wondered whether there had been some hidden version of Daniel worth mourning. Maybe the man I married had once been good. Maybe greed had slowly changed him. His letter answered the question. He still believed he was the victim. I placed the letter in a folder with the court documents, not because his words mattered, but because they no longer controlled me. I sent no answer. Silence was the only thing he had earned from me. Vanessa wrote too. Her first letters were full of excuses, so I returned them unopened. Almost a year passed before a different letter arrived. It was only 1 page. She did not blame Daniel. She did not blame me. She wrote that jealousy had lived inside her for years, and Daniel had simply found a way to use it. "I wanted your life," she wrote. "But I never understood that stealing your place would not make me become you." She did not ask for forgiveness. That was why I read the letter twice. I visited her once in prison. We sat on opposite sides of a scratched table beneath fluorescent lights. She looked older, and for the first time in my life, she did not try to appear helpless. "Why did you come?" she asked. "Because I needed to see you as you are, not as the sister I remember or the woman who left me in that car." Vanessa nodded. "Do you hate me?" "Sometimes." She looked down. "Will that ever change?" I don't know. It was not the answer she wanted, but it was the truth. Before I left, she told me she had started helping other prisoners earn book-keeping certificates. I said I hoped she continued. We did not hug. Healing does not always end with an embrace. Sometimes it ends with 2 people accepting that truth cannot repair everything it reveals. Outside the prison, Ruth waited in her car. "How do you feel?" she asked. I looked back at the tall fence. Free. On the 2nd anniversary of the fire, I drove to Lake Erie alone. Snow covered the ground where the boat house had stood. The lake was dark and still. I carried the burned sleeve of my old coat. Investigators had returned it after the trial, and I had kept it hidden in a box. For a long time, I held that piece of fabric and remembered crawling through broken glass. I remembered believing the fire was the end of my story. Then I understood why I had brought it. I was not there to mourn the woman who entered the boathouse. I was there to thank the woman who escaped it. I placed the burned cloth inside a metal bowl and lit it. The flame rose briefly, then disappeared. When the ashes cooled, I scattered them across the water. I drove home before sunset. That evening, Ruth house called. A mother and her 2 daughters had arrived with nothing but 1 suitcase. They needed blankets and food. I went to help. As I made beds in the shelter, one of the girls asked why the building was named Ruth House. "Because Ruth saved someone's life," I said. "Were you the person?" I smiled. "Yes." The girl thought about that. Then you should name a house after yourself too. I don't need a house with my name on it. Why not? I looked around at the warm rooms, the locked doors, and the people beginning again. Because this is enough. That night, I finally understood the difference between winning and healing. Winning was hearing the judge announce Daniel's sentence. Healing was building a life in which his name no longer appeared in every chapter. He had tried to turn me into a memory. Instead, I became a witness, a builder, and the author of my own ending. And whenever I pass the Hawthorne Hotel, I do not think about the memorial photograph or the lies Daniel told beneath the chandelier. I think about the chair. It is no longer empty. It belongs to every person who survived being erased, stood up, and reclaimed the room. E&D.